it's the that's why they got a space force. That's why they got a space force going on right now, because they know that YAHAWAHSHI is gonna. They know this, the heavenly body, which they call UFOs or UAPs. They know they're gonna come back. So they know that the heavenly host is gonna come back, and they're gonna that's what Revelation's talking about, the heavenly body when they have the war in heaven. That's what it's basically going into. All this great multitude. All this great multitude. The great multitude of men of all these armies and their hosts is going to come together to try to fight YAHAWAHSHI when he comes back with the heavenly bodies, these so-called UFOs that people know as the UFOs, which is the chariots of YAHAWAHSHI. So I'm going to read again the 2nd Ezra 13:5, and it reads, "And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of a number from the four winds of the heaven." That's all over the earth. That's all these military forces that they have all over the earth. All these different countries with their military forces. They're gonna come to try to fight, make war with with YAHAWAHSHI when he comes. The heavenly body host. The YAHAWAH. It's like from the four winds of the heavens to subdue the man that came out of the sea. But I beheld, and lo, he had graven himself a great mountain and flew upon it. That great mountain that it flew upon it is a huge chariot. You know, YAHAWAHSHI is coming back, that people know as ignorantly know as Jesus Christ. You know, he's coming back in the so-called UFO. He's coming back in the so-called UFO to basically regain his throne, his rightful throne, which is being King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He's going to rule over this whole earth. YAHAWAHSHI with King David and the 144,000 men. You know. Reading on, and I beheld, and lo, he had graven himself a great mountain and flew upon it. But I would have seen the region or the place thereof, Salakia, but I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, but I could not. So Ezra was trying to find out the beginnings. He was trying to see how big this chariot was, this so-called UFO was. He couldn't tell the beginnings or the ends of it. That's how huge it was when he seen it. You know, that through the vision. You know, when YAHAWAHSHI come back, he couldn't tell the beginning or the beginning of the chariot or the end of the chariot. So, and it reads, "And after this, I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, yet thirst fight." So that's what's going to happen when these different military countries, these different countries with their military, when they see YAHAWAHSHI come back with the angels, they're gonna be scared. They're gonna be very afraid, you know. But they still gonna fight. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna put it in their spirit to still fight. You know, when he come back, he's gonna subdue all these different armies, and they're gonna whenever they see the heavenly body of hosts, when they see the UFO UAPs, when they see them, they're gonna be scared. They're gonna be really, really afraid. You know, Because a lot of these military, the military, they know. That's why they seeing all these different so-called UFO sightings. They reporting it now. A lot of sightings been happening these past few years because that's another sign that the end is near. They said when you see, you know what I'm saying, when you see these things passing, but look up for your redemption draweth nigh. And that's the so-called UFO, which is the heavenly body. It'll save the elect and destroy the rest of the world, you know. Save the elect of YAHAWAH, the 1/3, the remnant of Israel, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. He's coming back to rescue the 1/3 of y'all, but only if y'all turn back to the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of your ability. Stop being a whore out there in the street. You dudes, stop trying to be a gangster and a thug all the time. Want to rob and kill your own brethren, you know, and doing all this type of wickedness. You know, you need to turn back to the law, statutes, and commandments, because that's what sauedom promoted to our people. Whoredom, this thug culture. He promoted that to our people, so we'll stay disconnected from our power, which is YAHAWAHSHI, YAHAWAHSHI. We're supposed to obey the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of our ability, and occupy in His word until we come. So, and it doesn't apply to like the Edomite, what they made, this racism thing that was created by the enemy, which is Esau Edom. You know, the spirit determines who you are. If you feel in the spirit that this message you can relate to it, you believe it, then you may be a part of the children of Israel, the 12 tribes here. You know, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Ephraim, Manasseh, Simeon, Zebulun, Gad, Reuben, Asher, Issachar, and Naphtali. You know, so Judah is the American blacks, Benjamin, West Indians, the West Indian blacks, Levi, the Haitians, Ephraim, Puerto Rico, the Puerto Ricans, Manasseh, Cubans, Simeon, Dominicans, Zebulun, Guatemala, so Panama, the Mayans, Gad, Native Americans, Reuben, Semio Indians, Asher, Colombia to Uganda, Incas, Issachar, the Mexicans or Aztecs, Naphtali, Argentina or Chile. So if you think you're it doesn't matter about what the enemy has put out there. We don't go by skin complexion, you know. But you know in your spirit, if you can get this message, more likely you one of the tribes of Israel, you know. Because the enemy has been raping and robbing and murdering ever since he's been over here. So all the tribes, most of the tribes have been lightened because of this demon, you know. Planted tares, you know, this demon has lightened everything up, lightened all the different people across the world. That's why you have a lighter complexion of people nowadays. But should see what time I was coming. 42 Second Ezra was on 13 and 7. I'm gonna start at 7. Second Ezra was 13 and 7 and reads, "But I would have seen a region or place without the hills, whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they that were gathered together to subdue the man, to subdue him, were sore afraid, yet durst fight. And lo, as I saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lift up his hand, nor held a sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out his mouth, that it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flame of breath, a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. That's what you call when you ever seen a UFO, when they blast that beam out of the ship. That's what it's describing here. That's all. That's what's going to happen when YAHAWAHSHI come back with the heavenly body, with people refer to UFOs. He's going to just send out a beam of tempest and fire to destroy the multitude that came to subdue him, which is these different militaries across this world. They're going to try in the midst of World War II. World War III. They're going to try to subdue YAHAWAHSHI when he comes back. But Second Ezra 13 and 10. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth that it has been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. You know, that's the end. That's what's going to happen. Let me read on to verse 11. And they were all mixed together in a blast of fire, the flaming breath, and a great tempest, and fell with violence upon the great multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived but only dust and smell of smoke. And I saw this, and I was afraid. So that's all that's going to happen when YAHAWAHSHI come back in the heavenly bodies. He come back and blast that tempest of flames and tempest. When he make that beam come out, what's going to be the residue of the armies? The armies are just going to be dust. You know, basically they're going to turn to dust when he blast them. It's going to be over. You know, he's going to blast them to dust. You know. That's what's going to happen to these armies when they in the midst of World War III, which is brewing as we speak. You know, so that's why I'm out here to gather the elect. This message is not for everybody, because everybody's not going to get it. Especially that goes for the people of the tribes too. Two parts are going to be cut off. So 2/3 of our people are going to be cut off. But if this resonate with you, you may be part of the elect if you turn back to the law, statutes, and commandments of YAHAWAH, YAHAWAHSHI. You go to Luke 12 and see what it says on Luke 12, Luke 21. Luke 21 and 27 and Revelations chapter 1 and verse 7, it reads, Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, Amen. Amen. So that's just going into YAHAWAHSHI when he comes. He's coming with the cloud. That means he's coming out of the heavens. You know, when he come back, and you know, and the prophets that was writing the book, they were just writing it according to what was going on in their time. So they called the chariots like clouds. You know, they didn't, you know, of course they didn't talk with it or know the terminology that we know today. So they called them whatever they could think of during their time. You know, so that's why you got to get teachers that can teach you, that know this book. You know, which is the great men at without a doubt, the great men at GMS. You know, so you got to have teachers in order to get this book. You know, and also the heaven, the Holy Spirit must rest upon you also. If you can understand this book, you know, maybe you're part of 1/3. Well, two-thirds are gonna be cut off and die here in Babylon the Great, but they're gonna still go in the ways of their king, which is Esau Edom, which is the so-called government here. They're gonna follow the ways of Esau Edom instead of following the ways of their power, because we was sent here to serve punishment as we still in captivity to this day. That's why when you see a lot of things happening in the news and all that, who's particularly it's targeting a certain group of people, which is the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. It's targeting them. You know, you see in the news, a lot of our people are getting murdered. Even by these like police officers, they get murdered unjustly, and nothing's getting done about it because we are under curses. You know, Yahawah sent us to serve our enemies in captivity that we are to this day. We still in captivity, you know. But like the word said, I pray, like YAHAWAHSHI said, I pray for the ones that you sent me, the elect basically, and I do not pray for the world. You know, he's not here for the whole world. He's only here for the elect of his people. It's like it says in the book that I come not but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That was YAHAWAHSHI speaking. That he come not but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So there's no salvation for these other nations. They in their heaven right now. You know, that's why the YAHAWAHSHI coming to create a new heaven and a new earth, you know, where righteousness dwells. Right now we dwelling in wickedness. You see that's all promoted in Babylon the Great. It's wickedness. It's little by little they making this place more wicked, and they trying to call it freedom. Like there's all this freedom, but in actuality it's wickedness. You know, because we're supposed to live by rules and regulations. We're supposed to have order, but there's no order here. Just like it says in Job. Like it says in Job. Like this phone is knocking. This phone it doesn't move fast. This phone here. The phone I normally use the phone that I'm recording. But yeah, Job 10 and 22, and it reads, "A land of darkness as darkness itself, and of the shadow of death, without any order, where the light is as darkness." That's the shadow of death, which is known as America. That's what the Bible have a lot of code names for this place here, which is Babylon the Great, Egypt, Sodom and Gomorrah through the Spirit, There's a lot of code names for this place here, which is Babylon the Great. He said I'm gonna read it again, the land of darkness, as darkness itself, and of the shadow of death, without any order, and where the light is as darkness. So even the food here, you eat the food, you can die from the food here, like food that's supposed to be healthy, good for you, like your vegetables or fruits. You just eat fruits and vegetables, you'll still die. You'll get some type of cancer in this place here. Now, I can get cancer for fruit, eat fruit and vegetables, bro. You don't have to smoke, drink, and you can still catch cancer. This place is their light. Their light is as darkness. This place is the valley of the shadow of death. But witchcraft, sorcery, and all that rules here. But I'm gonna get that out of the scriptures too. All sorcerers, whoremongers. That's in Revelations 28 and 8. I'm going to read it Revelation 21 and 6. I'm going to start at verse 6. And it reads, "And he said unto me, it is written, I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of water, that is athirst of the fountain of the water of the life." So let me read that back over. "I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his power, and he shall be my son. But the fearful, the unbelieving, the abominable, the murderers, the whoremongers, abomination, that's eating unfilthy, unclean food. That's abomination. Eating the pig, the swine, the bottom feeding food like lobster, shrimp, catfish, all these your gumbo, all that stuff is abomination to YAHAWAHSHI. That stuff is abomination. So I'm reading on. verse 8, but the fearful, the unbelieving, the abominable, the murderers, the whoremongers, and the sorcerers, and the idolaters, all liars, shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death, which I was explaining all of that at the beginning of this lesson, which is going to come in the midst of World War III, when they shoot off these nuclear bombs, these ICBM missiles. That's what's going to happen to Babylon the Great. It's going to be burned up with fire and brimstone. It's basically going to be burned up with fire and brimstone. That's why it tells you right there, like, you know, the unbelieving, the murderers, the sorcerers, because that's what's going on here. Even this so-called, this Maxine Waters that they got out, that they're gonna eventually make it mandatory. You know, you ain't gonna be able to go into a store, work at your job, eventually, because of this Maxine Waters that they got, because of this you know, this pandemic that they got out here. Yeah, eventually you won't be able to go into the store, won't do your regular shopping. You probably won't be able to drive. Probably gonna take all your privileges from you. Just like the scripture said, then you would know who was my elect. But when all hell break loose, it's calm now. Everything seems cool now. Even they try to make raise in certain states. They trying to raise the mandate of wearing the mask and all that. It seems like it's all good now, hoping things gonna get back to normal, but it's not. They even got variations or mutations of this virus out. And I heard they got a mutation, the India mutation is in the United States, that's what I heard. They also got a mutation, China got its own mutation. These other countries got their own mutations. So think about all these different countries. If they got another mutation, there's no way this place is going to come back to normal. You're not going to be able to travel. Nobody can leave in and out their country unless they get all these vaccines. And you know, if you got another virus, you got a mutation out, they're going to come up with another vaccine. You will keep taking the Maxine Waters. It's like you won't have to keep taking the Maxine Waters. So these people just setting people up for the okie doke, you know. And what the Bible says, you must watch as well as pray, you know. Yeah, the Bible says you must watch as well as pray. So that's what I'm trying to do. Here to seek out my own salvation with fear and trembling, as the scripture says. But let me try to see if I can grab something more. Fall of Babylon the Great. I think that's in Obadiah. I might read Obadiah, which is Edom. This place is not our rest. You know, we must, like the scripture said, we must depart from this place. Depart, because this is not our rest. You can even tell, even in the streets, these people that they're supposed to the ones that's supposed to protect and serve the people are murdering the people, bro. But they only murdering of specific people, which is the tribe, the so-called natives, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, the children of Israel. So I'm gonna read in Obadiah the judgment of Edom. I'm gonna start at verse 1. In the vision of Obadiah, thus saith YAHAWAH power concerning Edom, which Edom is the so-called self-proclaimed white race, the so-called self-proclaimed white man. You know, they proclaim them becoming white in 1618, if I'm not mistaken. But during the Bacon Rebellion that happened here in Virginia, they proclaimed themselves to be white, and they proclaimed the so-called Negroes at the time, they claimed them to be black. They gave them the title black just to separate us more, because the rebellion was about the servants, which there was mixed. There was black and white servants, slaves at the time, but you know, the so-called Negroes were doing worse, doing basically the rigorous labor anyway. But the slaves and the servants, and the blacks and the so-called blacks and whites and the Europeans and the Negroes at that time, they band together against the white people that had all this power and all this land, and they just tried to get their share. But since they wanted to divide the people, keep us down as a nation, they brought out the titles of black and white that you see today. If you go into the definition of black means darkness, wicked, you know, and black is a color. You're not black if you look at your skin, you're brown. You know, you got a brownish complexion, you know. There's no person on the planet, even the darkest person or human, the darkest person you can find on the planet is not black. You know, they might look black, it's like a real darkest brown, like a real dark brown. You know, there's no such thing as black. But they gave you black to keep you down, and they gave themselves white, which means pure and holy. That's all white means, pure and holy. But you know, so those names was created, and that was a curse that was placed upon our people. We're gonna be called bywords and proverbs. That's why you hear you went from Negro, you went for Afro-Americans, you went from black. I mean, you went from Negroes to blacks, Afro-Americans, the African-Americans, and all these different bywords, which was a curse. And YAHAWAHSHI said that our people will be placed upon you. That's in Deuteronomy 28. The curses is in Deuteronomy 28. Like midway, maybe starting at verse 15. That's where the curses started. But reading out of the book of Obadiah, the judgment of Edom, the vision of Obadiah. Thus said Yahawah concerning Edom, we have heard a rumor from Yahawah, an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. That's why I was going into earlier that all these different countries, even the allies of this country here, despise this country. They don't like Babylon the Great, which is AKA America, and that's why they're gonna shoot missiles on this place. They're gonna shoot ICBM missiles. It's all written in this book here, in the Holy Bible. You know, they're gonna shoot missiles upon this place. They're gonna destroy all inhabitants except the ones that be rescued from our Savior, which when YAHAWAHSHI comes, you know.